Доброго дня. I am Mindaugas, chief architect from the capital of Lithuania, Vilnius city. Actually the guy who is guilty for everything what happens in the city. Doesn't matter good or bad. Chief architect is always the guy who has to answer for the communities, for the politicians, for the press, and first and at the end for himself as a professional working for the city. So Vilnius and Lviv and lots of other Ukrainian cities are very similar. We have 400 square kilometers size, 600,000 with something inhabitants, young city, growing population, low density, a lot of green spaces around, and a lot of cars running through our nice towns. Like you, like Lviv, Vilnius is also very young. This is, the most of our population is about 25 and 50 years old. These are the people who create families, who create businesses, which create wealth for all other inhabitants. And the competitiveness of the cities hang on these things, how we can keep this most creative population in the city. What do they need? They need very simple things. They need accessibility measured in minutes, not in the meters. They need excellent public transport. They need cycling facilities to go with bold bikes. They need high standard of culture to go into a good concert at night. They need good education for their kids. They need nice public spaces. They need leisure. They need clean air and affordable housing. These are quite simple things which we can offer for our population to stay and for other inhabitants to come to our cities. Like all Eastern European cities, Vilnius, Lviv, and others, they all have three faces. All our pictures are above. This is tourist attraction, our city center. But most of our population live in the picture in the middle. It's quite a different kind of life, quite a different city, and quite a different things we have to do to make lives in these Soviet blocks better. I would say that modernistic planning is a key problem of our cities. Our city centers would survive anyway and anyhow. They are attractive. They will live. What will happen with these areas? This is the key question. When you look at this green area between the houses, you cannot understand. Is it a courtyard? Is it a square? Is it a park? And you see that people are not using it. It's just empty space between buildings. And that is all over the big picture and all over the Eastern Europe where we have such kind of planning. Why it happened? It happened actually after the Second World War, when a lot of our cities were just washed away by the war. Unluckily, the war is going now, and unluckily, cities are also washed away and damaged. Just after the war, best planners, architects came together and decided that after the war we build cities nicer. We loosen them, we make a lot of green spaces and put white houses in those green spaces, and everybody would be lucky and happy living there. But it didn't happen that way. Our cities were destroyed really a lot. Small Vilkaviški city, 1945, was reconstructed after the war. We see nice pavements, but we see that the city view, it's completely different. The city lost its identity. All the city center was just washed away. And when you look at the spaces between those buildings which now stand in the center, you cannot define, is it a yard, is it a square, is it a street? It's just space between buildings. And people don't know even where to put the shop, because people are just walking everywhere. They don't use street as a street. That is the major thing why Vilkaviškis isn't successful in the city competition. When you look at the views of the city, before the war, it was much better. It was a city, and here there are just some single houses standing in the space. We don't have feeling of being in the city. Another town, Biržai, very nice medieval town, also was the city center, just disappeared. There are no such blocks anymore as it was in 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century. The public places got bigger, but they got empty. They don't have the character which is suitable for the people just to gather there. They are just too big. The first movements of thinking differently as modernism started, I would say, 1990s. It was exhibition again in Berlin, where they tried to do it different ways. Not a lot was remaining from the block in the Friedrichstadt, but they rebuilt it, rebuilding the system of spaces. You already can define the street, the park, the square, and safe courtyard, where children can play in the middle of the town, safely play. And that was success, and that's how new modernism appeared. Now new modernism is well known all over the world. David presented Malmo, B001, I think one of the best examples which changed the mind of a lot of urban planners, how we should plan cities. Iburg, Amsterdam, Hafen City, Hamburg, now it's all over the world. But when I ask the new office people coming to me after the graduating high school, they don't know a lot about this. They still are taught in modernism. And that is really the thing which is important for the schools to understand that the times have changed. To change the education, the principles of thinking. People are taught to design nice house. They should design spaces and then the house. So we tried also, our first try was to do new urbanism was about 2004, Paupys district, where we were not sure, will our people like that? Because we were not used to live in the flats like that, in the districts like that, in the new districts like that. We did very simple. We decided the streets, the square in the middle, different blocks, and invited different architects to design each block. It was a huge success. The prices for real estate here doubled just in 2 years. It's now the most successful example of people living inside the city and having safe yards for their kids. When we want to regulate city development, we have two kinds of tools. First, it's formal tools. Master plans, detailed plans, and a lot of other planning. When you start new master plan, you finish in 5 years. So your master plan is already 5 years old. And you can start the new one because the time and understanding has changed. So you need informal tools to regulate city development if you want to have changes happening quickly and changes happening now and changes you require now. So for that we invented 10 principles of quality architecture in Vilnius. They appeared just trying to put together all the remarks we gave for different projects in the city. Because these problems, what we had was told to each architect, so we decided just to write them down. And that way we got those 10 principles. First, respect to urban context. Don't do modernistic houses in historic areas. You damage the life of the city, you damage the lives of the people. If you change urban structure, think what you are creating. Not create problems, create the solutions. Separate public and private spaces. Seems quite simple, but when you look at each project, they have a lot of problems and a lot of things why they cannot do this. Insulation, aeration, distances from the borders, and a lot of different things always is a problem when to do that, wanting to do that. But actually, if we want the cities to be livable, we should say that this is public, this is street, square, park, and this is private, this is courtyard, which is the place where kids could play safely, watched by their moms. These are the things what David was saying just some hours ago. When we speak about the spaces, we should always remember that people understand spaces by the feeling. If it is as high as bright, it's a street space. Yard space must be a little bit bigger. When we do new projects, we often use space for the yard as the same size as the space for the street. So that means that people living in the block will not have the yard. This is also very important things which we're taught in the schools, but normally in the practice, we don't do like that. What to do with the Soviet blocks? They are huge. Normal walkable city blocks is 60 by 60, 100 by 100 meters, and they are just 150 by half a kilometer. You go one bus stop and it's the same block. So we decided just to divide them, try to find in the structure something which divides the blocks in the parts. It could be kind of street, kind of pedestrian walkway, kind of public plaza. And these things helps to say what is private and what is public. When we started to do this, the reaction from people was different. All the people living in the blocks said, just go away, don't touch anything, we need just more parking places for our cars. Younger people saw it as an opportunity, saw as a possibility for them to have the safe place for their kids to play. And I see this young population coming into these blocks as our chance to reshape the blocks and to find new possibilities for them. Bring life into the streets. Remember that first is a pedestrian, then the bike, then the public transport, and just then the car. We should think opposite. Now we design streets for the cars. No, we have to design it for pedestrians. And pedestrians need quality surfaces. The car can go a bit moving, but pedestrians need good paths to walk. Otherwise, they don't walk. If you want to bring the people into the streets, you should create interest into the streets. They should go for something here. The best way to kill the street is to build building like that. Entrance to the parking, and you have, on the ground floor, you have just a garage. It's very cheap and very comfortable for the inhabitants, but it's a dead street. Nothing is happening there. So we said you get additional density, additional square meters if you build shop on the ground floor. Actually, you get it granted from the city. In the beginning, everybody said it will not work. No one will rent it. But it worked perfectly. In 2 years, also the developers changed. Now when developer comes to me, said, I want this ground floor granted, I definitely put commercial premises there because people want to rent that, and the people living up want the services which come to these ground floors, and normally small businesses. It's not big entities with big shopping malls coming there. If you build a shop, don't park the cars in the front of window. Cars should be on the streets. This is very also simple rule, but very hard to explain even for the developers that it's bad solution to put car between the pedestrian and the window. Create contemporary architecture. Don't be afraid to create new heritage. It's still a question in the heritage protected area. Should we build old buildings or should we build new? We have a right to do new creative things. Use local building materials. If you can transport granite stove from Ukraine, don't transport it from China. It's CO2 and all other things which is important for our environment, and also it's local. It belongs to us, and it's like we used to see the buildings around. Convert and adapt first, and then destroy it. We changed Museum of Revolution into art gallery. One of the ugliest offices in our old town, in one of the most attractive ones. Protect even small marks from the past. They save the character of the space. preserve and reuse the heritage. Reuse firstly. Reuse. Use private money for the heritage. Because just one of these pictures, just one thing is done with public money. Other three, art gallery, food court, spa center, was used, it's the heritage which was restored, reconstructed with private money, where you can, we don't spend public money on just to restore the things. Protect and enhance greenery of the city. This is very important because trees in the city give shadow. And it was very easy to cut the street. So we made very simple rule. If you cut the tree, you should plant as many trees as it fits into diameter, not 1, 10, 12. This made cutting of the trees more expensive. And it's the rule which we require from ourselves. If you build bike path, just make small turns to save the trees growing in the street. Organized competitions. We have special decision of Vilnius City Council that all buildings bigger than 5,000 square meters should go for architectural competition. We had before just 2 competitions per year, now we have 20 competitions per year. This brought the discussion about quality much higher, in much higher level, and involved much more architects in the processes of creating the city. And what is important for the bureaucrats, look what is actual content of the project you get. Not just the bureaucratic things, but actually what values project is giving. This helped for us a lot fighting with the bureaucracy. And we even made a self-control tool for architects. You can see your solution. If it is red, you have to come to chief architect. And normally you get problems. You have long discussions and the project is postponed. If you want to go quicker, try to be green. This also helps for us to communicate with the architects and also with the community. It's clear for everybody, what do we want? What do we mean? The same principles were used to do other city policies. So, principles of street design, principles of city lighting, principles of schools and kindergarten. We put all our principles on the postcards. If it is longer than the postcard, nobody will read it. We ourselves will not read it. So how can we require from others to read it? We said that our policy should be a lot longer as a postcard. And this helped for us to explain also for the people, what do we actually want? And we started changing from ourselves. This is Vilnius City Municipality 2 years ago and now. It was empty space and no one was working there. I even saw that the father was teaching his kid to drive a bike here just some days ago. So the people started to use the space just because of the trees and bushes. It's also very simple to do. And to show it for the developers that it works, we did it firstly to our buildings, and then we require from them. Now we do similar regulations for different parts of the city, together with communities, together with developers, and try to find these 10 principles for different parts of the city. Because we have about 20 different typologies of urban structure, so if we go deeper, these 10 principles of architecture should be adapted to each site in the city. So at the end, I would like to wish for all colleagues from Eastern Europe, especially from Ukraine, design the cities, design the spaces first, and only then to design the houses. That is, I think, the major message which I wanted to say. Дуже дякую за можливість бути тут.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Клас. Надзвичайно
Fantastic.
надзвичайно цікаво,
It was extremely
як ви
be exposed to
акценти яких потрібно
your priorities.
планування міст
It's great that you have the set of
багатьом нашим
that everyone should adhere to while designing and
Список
And I really hope that all
того, що
localities and communities will have a very
Big Yes і Big No.
checklist of
У нас є можливість
principles, big yeses and big nos.
ще
Time
лишати.
just for one question, and
Ви можете потім
the
підійти.
chief architect of Vilnius will stay here. So if you can approach him later and ask some questions.
Так. Я бачу
Any
руку.
raised hands?
Бачу.
I cannot really see anything at this.
Десь є рука.
There's a raised hand somewhere.
Ти волонтера.
May I ask a question? Question?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Англійський спитаю.
I will ask it.
Me, as a student of the foreign Spanish school, I'm like hearing another tutorial, beautiful manual of steps to follow. It's like my native education. I think the biggest challenge for us is really, as you said, our education to implement this manual, not the narratives we have right now. And I'm sure our young generation will be very good in doing so. I see more difficulties, as everyone is saying today and yesterday, in our legislation. And currently, we have a lot of authorities that don't understand the Soviet heritage value. They see it as a very negative. They don't understand how it's possible to back off the interests of big investors. So if we are doing something to be in the green zone of the manual, then it's not interesting for the developers and all the corruption and so on. So Baltics are amazing model in this respect, because you managed, somehow you were at this edge of being the classical Soviet, post-Soviet space. You managed to make this shift. So I'm wondering, did you do it in the way of forums, workshops with the officials? How are you re-educating, or re-educated some like 20, 30 years ago, this main stakeholders responsible of processes actually happening? Thank you.
I think everything relies on people. Those Ukrainians which are now in the Baltics, which work in our Lithuanian offices in Vilnius, I know hundreds of them. These are your ambassadors which are learning the things how we are doing. Myself, I went to Germany in the 90s, when the war in Berlin was just about to be demolished. So I saw the things happening here, there, and I brought the knowledge to Lithuania. It took for me 30 years to understand that 90s was the birth of new urbanism. So it's a long period to go. We started POPIS project 2004, and it's completed now. So urban shifts are really long-term things. So I think depends on a lot of things. Education, people understanding that, speaking also officially and unofficially, spending time in Facebook writing about things, what you are doing, trying to level the discussion not about single house, but about the processes what are going on in the city. That's how we made this discussion even possible. Because before that, it was just discussion, is the house nice or not nice? And now we are already in the level where we speak that is the structure good or not in the single house, not the single house. That is the big issue. But as I said, it's a long way to go, and it mainly depends on the single persons which are all over the world to gather together to define the values and then to keep these values going on. So I'm in the seventh year chief architect. And I see that 5 years is nothing. In the 7th year, I started to see the results of the work. This is really a long way to go, and you need some major principles you keep all this. Yes.